So we are now to the handout that is going to look like this. Challenge and action, a lot of text. Sorry about that. You going to help me with this?
Yeah.
Great. We're going to start out briefly talking about the big picture of what are we doing about I-30. Well, right now they're doing some research and preparing a state proposal that everybody get going really fast with this zillion new lanes they're going to build. We're part of the advocates group that is saying, no, slow down, you're going to spend too much money. And what's more, we think that you're going wrong, and what's more beyond that, you haven't answered a lot of important questions. Like, what is the health risk to everybody around the interstate? What is the factor that what they're proposing today for I-30 is going to run up onto 630? And the next thing is they're going to say, we've got to have a wider 630, which puts you right in this neighborhood, which has got a lot of concern for a lot of us. And so what the Improve 30 Crossing advocates have put together is a list of the major questions, and that's what's here on the page, to take to the mayor and the city board and the county judge in your quorum court, JP. Because we want everybody to start asking for an environmental impact statement, to answer those questions before they start spending the money and building the pavement. They really shouldn't do it till they answer a lot of questions. And John Hendrick is also a member of that. John is a neighbor to me in the Downtown Association, but he's particularly welcome because he's retired from the business of planning transportation. And so this is his bread and butter for a lifetime of career. John, take us through this, please.
Yeah, just get a little background. AHTD is in the process, they're in an environmental assessment process. Purpose of an environmental assessment is to go through checking on various things, but the end of that, you get to the decision point. Either there's a finding of no significant impact, otherwise known as a FONSI, or senior moment.
They have another
Findings of no significant impact, which means they can go ahead with the project, or that there are significant issues that need further study, and therefore an environmental impact statement needs to be done, full-blown environmental impact study. And that's what we want to get to the details. And a lot of it is induced demand, as mentioned on this sheet. That might be a fancy planner's term, but to give you an example of what induced demand is, as Kathy said, I'm retired, at least don't have regular hours. Live downtown right near 3630, might need to go to North Little Rock. Okay, 4:30 to 5:30, there may be some congestion. Therefore, I decide I'm not going to go to North Little Rock between 4 and 6 o'clock. I either go before 4 or after 6. Breeze right on through. Highway department comes along, spends $750 million putting in 14 lanes crossing the river. Free flow all day long. Now I can go 5 o'clock, I can head to North Little Rock and not incur congestion. That is induced, I'm now induced demand. And that goes on and on and on for various, maybe people carpooling, that now that's some friction factor in the morning. I have to drive over to Denise's place to pick her up, and so now I don't have to do that. Denise, go by yourself, induced demand. And that causes other problems. There have been two, Norm Marshall was hired by a group funded by the Arkansas Public Policy Panel, and to look into the issues, and showed induced demand to be an issue. And also Nelson Nygaard hired by the city. And studies were done, show it's a factor, it's ignored by the highway department. So basically just to give you a little understanding what that is, and Kathy will get to the action plans later. One of the other, besides spending so much money, part of which is mortgaging the future, because there's about $100 million in there that's based on financing and then taking a loan, paying it back with federal highway funds to come in future years. Which, one, there's uncertainty there. The other thing is that's taken away from projects not only now, but future projects that may be needed for safety and so on down the road. So is that a good decision? Another, like transit, the study they did, 11% improvement could be done by transit. That just thrown out. It's everything they looked at. Otherwise, Chester Street Bridge was taken in isolation. So they just say there's not enough benefit. We need to move on with more lanes. So we'll get to the action items in a bit.
Okay. These are a bit in order of severity, but obviously the notion is you take a look at all of this and you see what particularly concerns you. One thing we have found time and again is health. And one thing I want to call your attention to is that Children's Hospital also is concerned with children's health, and they just announced a major research project which is going to look at many factors, including, as it says here, the air pollution and chemicals in our neighborhoods. So we're not just making this up and we're not just jumping at nothing. They're putting serious money into a long-term research project to ask these questions, and our state highway department needs to respect that. But it's going to take us going to the mayor and the county judge and our city directors to say, you need to look at that. You need to slow down and take this into consideration. One of the other things is the fact that they've got one of those little clever maneuvers where they say, we're just going to build on 7 miles of Interstate 30. But when you get down into the footnotes, they say, in fact, this is going to benefit us and it's going to be justified to spend this $700 million because we're going to connect to 630 and some other places like Baseline. Well, golly gee, folks, if you're going to claim a benefit, you need to be putting the cost in there because you're going to have to widen Baseline and widen 630 to get to that benefit. And the Metro Plan professionals, this isn't us advocates, this isn't somebody guessing. The Metro Plan folks who do this every day have said, if you do the plan they propose, $4 billion and major expanses on Baseline and Burns Park and North Little Rock and 630 are coming at you because it's all going to be time to get it. And they're going to say, oh, we can't quit now because it isn't going to work until we do it all. Well, that's really questionable policy. If you spend all your money on this one thing and you do nothing else anywhere else, that's probably going to leave you hurting. And if induced demand comes to play, which everybody else experiences, then you're going to spend all this money and you're not going to end up with faster flowing streets. You're going to have the gridlock today because everybody wants to come drive on the new pavement. And you've wasted your money. What's the sense in that? This is the kind of a thing we are asking everybody here to take back to your home neighborhood and ask them to press for studying the environmental impact statement. Get an EIS. That isn't saying you're stopping the project. It isn't saying you're for the project. It's saying let's get more information about the project. We also found there were some math errors and they really ought to fix those. And the real excitement is one of the studies they got and put in the closet said if we expanded our bus services and transit options beyond just one person driving on this pavement, we could cut the choke on I-30 by up to 11%. That's the state's own paid-for study. But of course, the state doesn't do bus services. They just do pavement of highways. So they put it aside, and we are the ones that found out about it, and we are the ones that are raising the question with the city and the county, don't you want to look at expanding transit and cutting down on what's needed in lanes of pavement over on 30? And as it happens, Becca is going to be here to tell us about the exact plan that the bus company and the transit folks have planned. They're on it. They're planning to do exactly what the consultant says, to cut 11% off the demand for I-30 expansion. So with this, Becca, let me ask you to take it on.
Okay,
Take
well,
it
thanks a
away.
lot.
Any questions?
Is there a deadline? I mean, I work with a group that has a board.
I would say do this in the next 6 weeks.
The next 6 weeks.
Do this in the next 6 weeks.
Okay, I'm going to ask to hold the questions at the end because we have this kind of time. Kathy promised me 30 minutes, and I am going to take every bit of that minute, those 30 minutes, but we will take questions at the end because we have a 10-minute Q&A at the end. So, my name is Becca Green. I'm the Director of Public Engagement at Rock Region Metro, which is a fancy title for basically saying that I handle marketing, communications, and community outreach. So before I start talking, I want to give a short video that we put together for our 30th anniversary because I think it says a lot and shows a lot about who we are and what we do. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Thank you.
Rock Region Metro has connected people with opportunity for 30 years by providing safe, affordable transportation services across the Metro. We can't express how important key partnerships have been to the success of Rock Region Metro. Recently, we partnered with Pulaski Tech. We provide them with the UPACS program, and their students, faculty, and staff are able to ride the bus for no additional fare.
Can everybody hear? Raise your hand.
To host Pop-Up in the Rock at the River City Travel Center to really highlight the opportunities of that facility. And we partnered with the City of Little Rock as well as the Arkansas Relief Alliance to provide a mobile market. So we transitioned a bus that had its capacity use for life and turned it into a mobile food market so that those who live in communities that don't have access to fruits and vegetables are able to do so and live healthy lifestyles.
Here in Central Arkansas, we're always trying to attract new talent and keep young people here that have grown up here. And having a robust transportation system is really key to those quality of life factors. Knowing that you don't always have to rely on a car, that you can choose to ride the bus, you can choose to use your bike, or some combination of those.
I've been riding the bus since 2014. I've not driven to Pulaski Tech one time this semester or last. I do have a car, but I just prefer to take the bus. It keeps me on schedule. I can do homework on the bus. There's Wi-Fi on the bus. I re-upped my CPR certification on the bus one morning on the last day it was due. I like how it frees me.
I've been riding public transport all my life. I rode it in England too. I grew up riding public transportation. It was very natural for me to make a transition when we came here. It didn't odd me not to ride the buses, because that's what I've always done. And it is a neat way to see other places and see other people when you go around the city. You get out of your own bubble, and you get to see and interact and meet with a whole bunch of people, maybe friends.
I've been riding since September of 2006, and so I use it to go anywhere I need to get to. Particularly if I work as a substitute teacher, I use the bus to get me as close to the schools as possible. There are quite a few schools that I'm not able to get to substitute teach at. It would be nice if some of the buses could get to just about every school that exists.
Our transit system allows us to grow and to develop, and one of the things about our system is that when you have transit, and transit can flow into areas pretty easily, you have communities that are built around transit. You know, neighborhoods where businesses form. It has an economic development impact. It has a community development impact. So I think that's really important. I think it's key to the growth of our community.
I don't think you can put enough effort on developing quality public transit for a city today. We certainly see it in our business. Most of our downtown work has been intentionally adjacent to transit lines and even our River City Transit Center. And some say, well, that's not your ridership is different than your clientele. Well, it may be different today, but tomorrow it'll be one and the same. To me, a city that doesn't invest in public transit is a city that really doesn't care about the future.
The services that Rock Region Metro offers are vital to the economy of Central Arkansas because we're connecting people to the places that they need to go.
A lot of our families that come to our clinic do depend on the transit system in order to get here. You know, a lot of times, especially when your child is sick and you don't have a car or any other way to get here, it's the only option that you have. So I see a lot of our families getting on and off the bus just right up here in the Midtown area. I just think having a good transit system would really increase the quality of people's lives, just so that it's easier for them to get to their doctors, easier for them to get to the grocery store, it's easier for them to get to work, which I think are all things that make people's lives better. And I would just love to see that sort of investment in our community.
Public transportation is vital to programs like the UAMS Project Search Program for individuals with disabilities. It's vital because it gets them to the vocational training, which is essential to that job, where they'll need public transportation again. And let's not forget how important social and recreational activities are to everyday life. And transportation is required to get us to those opportunities. We all want to work and engage in our community on our own, independently. And public transportation gives us that ability. It's about quality of life.
Who wouldn't want to sit on a bus, relax, catch up on email, surf the internet, or read a book, and then arrive at work relaxed and ready to start your day? And also, having those few extra steps or that short bike ride from the bus stop to your workplace is really a great opportunity to clear your mind and get yourself ready for the workday ahead.
Well, Rock Region Metro has worked hard over the past few years to really modernize the customer experience. We've invested heavily in things that passengers want and need.
With the Wi-Fi, on all the buses, GPS, the tracking, it's easy to be able to figure out when to get to the bus stop, and I love it.
Rock Region Metro has been blessed over the past 30 years with hundreds upon hundreds of Central Arkansans who have dedicated their careers to providing high-quality public transportation to their community. We've seen folks who have been at this agency as long as the agency has been in existence, all the way from the operators who are the face of this organization, to the mechanics who are the heart, keep our fleet running, and to the administrative staff who ensures that those frontline employees are taken care of.
I think it's so important that we invest in public transportation because not everybody has access to their individual vehicle to get where they need to go.
Public transit is really the lifeblood of the future ways to move in the community, I think.
All great cities have great public transportation. And as we continue to invest in Rock Region Metro, we'll build upon the rich history of the past 30 years to ensure that our region has a strong economy as we connect people to their opportunities.
Okay, well, thanks for watching that video. Hopefully it gave you a little bit of information on who's using our system and why. But I'm here to tell you a little bit more about public transportation in Central Arkansas. And I do see a few familiar faces. I know some of you have heard this presentation before, so just bear with me. Hopefully you'll learn something new this time when I'm presenting it. It's always different, a little bit. This is, I'd like to go ahead and bust a few myths right off the bat. You know, when we were, many of you in the room know that we pursued a quarter-penny sales tax last year to fund public transit, and one of the criticisms from our opponents was that, oh, I see empty buses around. One of those was the Democrat Gazette, which happens to be diagonal from our bus station downtown, where 24 of our 26 bus routes end. So of course, at the end of a route in transit, it is not unique to have a bus that comes that's empty, because it is picking up people along the way and driving them along the way where they need to go. So this is a bus, and it's kind of a dark picture, you can't see it. I took it last year about the same time of year in the morning, in the early morning, that's why it's dark, and it's packed full of people. I was with a reporter, I think from KTV that morning, and she was describing the bus as standing room only, and she was correct. So this is what a bus looks like, and you may not see it when you're at home getting ready if you have a car, because in order to get somewhere in our system right now with the frequency of the buses, which isn't very frequent in some areas, even on popular routes, in order to make transfers, if you're coming from one neighborhood and you have to go downtown and make a transfer to another route to get out to where your employer is or whatever, you're going to get up early. You're going to be out on the route already, probably at about 6:10. when I'm just rolling out of bed and starting to get in the shower, okay? So this is a packed bus. This is what you will see if you get up early enough on a bus. And this is actually a photo I took around the same time of year last year of the DC Metro. This is in Washington, DC. And you can see there aren't very many people on that subway system. And this is leaving the Reagan Airport. Now, does anybody think that this photo means that the entire DC subway system is a total waste? No? Okay, good. Just a quick show of hands. Who here has a car that you drive for more than 12 hours on a weekday, average? Okay, what about more than 6 hours each weekday? Okay, a couple of you. More than, and this is a weekday, not in a week, just in a weekday, one day. Do you drive it more than 3 hours? More than 2? More than 1? Okay. All right, so if you're driving your car that you own less than 2 hours out of a 24-hour day, you're running your own car at less than 10% efficiency. Okay, it's being parked somewhere, not being used, right? So I would argue that our buses are definitely getting used more often than that. So it's a frame of mind as to what's efficient and what's not that you have to kind of put yourself out of and look at it from a macro bird's eye standpoint. Also, I want to talk about the streetcar for just a minute because there's a lot of complaints sometimes about the streetcar being empty. Our streetcar system is a starter system. It's not meant for commuting. It would be built a lot differently if it was. It was an economic development engine that was actually brought to us from the mayors of Little Rock and North Little Rock and the judge of Pulaski County at the time. And it was basically a political promise to get Verizon Arena over on the North Little Rock side of the river. And the promise was, we'll build a streetcar system to bring people to events over there from Little Rock. So, our streetcar system, any given weekday, this was a weekend on last February when it was really pretty outside, a little chilly still, but very pretty day. And you can see every window on that streetcar is packed. When it's pretty weather and when it's a weekend, people are taking their grandkids on it, visitors who have never been to Little Rock or maybe you've never been to Arkansas are on it. So that's what the streetcar is about. It's about economic development, and we are getting the job done on that front. So why should you invest in public transit? Well, for one, congestion is economically inefficient. So the average adult spends about 38 hours per year stuck in traffic. And that's not just driving in traffic, it's literally idling in traffic. Of course, this is not productive time for you. That's almost a week's worth of work that you could be doing. But also, it's not good for our environment to have this many vehicles just sitting at a standstill idling. So, also, cars take a lot of space. A car moving at 60 miles per hour takes up about 5,000 square feet of space. And you're taking these space requirements with you wherever you go. You can't move as many people with cars. You can move about 28.4 people per block. Most people in this room, I think, would agree with me when I say most people are alone driving their cars, and their cars seat 5 to 8 other people, or 5 to 8 people total maybe, but they're driving alone. So this is why you can't move as many people per block with cars. Transit's about 10 times more efficient. You can move about 225 people per block with transit. You can also move even more people by walking. Walking is a mode of transportation as well, right? Walking and cycling. So you can move about 1,000 people per block for walking. This is a fairly recent map of downtown Little Rock. The areas in yellow are parking lots.
Surface parking.
Surface parking. The areas in red are parking garages. Our number one land use here in Little Rock is parking. That's our number one land use. So we would argue down at the transit agency and submit to you that instead of celebrating big macro highway projects such as the Big Rock Interchange, we should be doing more celebration of ribbon cuttings for things like the Tech Center, where you have a bunch of buildings that are coming down into the same space, the Little Rock Tech Hub, to have like businesses put together to create interest and generate energy down in the creative corridor. Where you see a lot of mixed-use development and a lot of dense development. That's also going to help us with what our voters have decided is the number one issue for us. We took a survey a couple of years ago now and asked what the number one challenge was for Central Arkansas, and the response was handily, we need more help, we need to focus on attracting young talent and getting them to stay in Central Arkansas. So, and of course, that's just one audience for us, but millennials, it's no secret, don't want to drive as much as their older peers here, and so transit can help address some of that. So what we did is we put together the Move Central Arkansas Bus Service Improvement Plan, and this is what that quarter penny sales tax would have funded. It's a good plan, and the first tenet of it is to establish a modern funding structure. So a lot of people don't understand how we're funded, so I'll just try to quickly describe it. But basically we get most of our funding from the 6 local jurisdictions where we operate, and those jurisdictions are Pulaski County and the cities of Little Rock, North Little Rock, Maumelle, Sherwood, and Jacksonville. So that's the biggest pot of money, which makes sense because our transit system is here. It's not in Washington, D.C. It's here in Pulaski County. So that's the biggest pot of money we get. The second biggest is our fare payments, the bus payments that you buy when you get on the bus, passes, things like that. And then third is federal money, which federal money, most of you in the room seem pretty savvy about federal dollars and different dollars. Federal money is usually only for capital expenses. The federal government really doesn't like to give anybody operating expenses. So it pays for things like buses or the actual bus station downtown. Most of that campus that you see was built with federal dollars. Most of the streetcar line, like the rail that you see on the streets downtown, that was put in with federal dollars. And then we get a very small, less than 1% from the state, and that is mainly because we are one of many beneficiaries off of a car rental tax. And so we get a very small amount every year from that. So basically, one of the problems with our funding structure is that it's really inflexible. Let me give you an example. The 6 local jurisdictions that pay into the system only pay for the service miles in their exact jurisdiction. An example of a service mile is if we had one route, let's say in Little Rock, and it was 10 miles long and it ran 5 times a day, that would be 50 service miles a day in Little Rock that are being operated. So we have different service mile levels in Little Rock, North Little Rock, Maumelle, Sherwood, Jacksonville, and then Pulaski County, the unincorporated areas of Pulaski County. So it's very equitable for the jurisdictions to say we're only going to pay for the miles that are in our area. That's very fair. It's a fair way for them to break up the expense. But it's not a good way to plan transit because we are a system. And honestly, if you're looking at it from a purely transit planning viewpoint, we are not really concerned with where the trip generators are in our system. Whether they're in Little Rock or North Little Rock really doesn't matter to us. We just want to make sure that we're capitalizing on places that are in high demand for transit and getting people where they need to go. But this matters greatly to the jurisdictions because it determines the cost that they're going to pay into the system every year. So one thing where this gets confusing for people when they're asking about new routes or expanding routes and things like that is that, for example, if we have an unperforming or a poorly performing route, let's say that Pulaski County is paying for, these county, and this route's out in the county, it's just not doing very well, there's not a lot of people riding or whatnot, we can't just take those miles off of Pulaski County and plug them down into a area of high need in Little Rock. We can't do that because, yeah, Pulaski County might not pay in as much to the system anymore, but Little Rock would have to pay more. And we don't get to determine what Little Rock gives us. That would be very nice if we did, but we don't get to do that. What we do every year is that we go to each of these 6 different jurisdictions at the end of the year when they're planning their next year's budgets, and we say, okay, North Little Rock, this is what we think it's going to cost to run service this next year with just the status quo. This is not adding anything, doing anything differently. This is just the cost of doing business. And they go, okay, or not okay. But we've been fortunate in that they have all agreed to fund us at status quo levels for 30 years. So that is why we're really hemmed in with the routing structure that we have right now, because it's pretty much impossible to change it with our funding structure as it is. So we really want to establish a dedicated funding source for public transit, not just for the extra money that it brings into the system and the investment, but because it offers flexibility with that money to plan transit as it should be for where our community is growing. Because our community's changed a lot in 30 years. And I'll give you another example. The Chenal Promenade. It used to be the woods. We don't have a route that goes out there because it was the woods, right? And so everybody wants to go out there, but it costs money to go out there. It costs people to drive buses, it costs money for extra buses, and it costs money for fuel to run those buses. Okay, Another tenet of the plan for the Move Central Arkansas plan, I'm going to check my time here to make sure I'm doing good, is to invest in major corridors. So we wanted to bring a new service to Central Arkansas called Bus Rapid Transit. Bus Rapid Transit is basically everything that people like about light rail, but it's not as expensive and it's not as permanent. There's not rail in the street, for example. But Bus Rapid Transit offers longer, sleeker vehicles. If you've been to bigger cities and you see those buses with the accordion thing in the middle, they're called articulated buses. Those are the kind of buses that you would have with Bus Rapid Transit. They're lower to the ground. You have platforms instead of shelters, so you can have level boarding, so people who have mobility issues can, the doors open, the bus comes up, you prepay your fare. So the bus comes up, the doors open, you get on, and they close and you go. And it doesn't stop on every block, it stops every several blocks, so it gets you down to where you're going faster. So that's what people love about Bus Rapid Transit. We've identified a few corridors here in Central Arkansas that we thought would be right for it. One is Markham, to downtown and go up or out west toward Markham. This is University right here. So there will be a transfer station there, down on University, and then back to downtown via 12th Street, which is a corridor that's totally ripe for development. It's a perfect corridor for mixed-use development on 12th Street. And it goes by the Hillary Clinton Children's Center and Arkansas Children's Hospital in Whitesloop way back to downtown. And it would be bi-directional, meaning it would go out this way and also have another one going this way from downtown to 12th back up University to Markham. That's one corridor. Another would be from downtown Markham, same way down south, but then keep traveling all the way down University to UALR, which is a big hot spot in our system, and then back up again to downtown. We also looked at a third corridor up Main and out JFK to McCain in North Little Rock, so that's a potential third corridor for Bus Rapid Transit. And this is just an example of what Bus Rapid Transit looks like in different cities. Eugene, Oregon's on this list. It has a population that's about like Central Arkansas, so it's pretty similar kind of geography and demographics. And Mexico City too is pretty cool, and it's got this one that you can see, and they're coming up in the middle of the lane here on the road. So there are lots of different examples of where this has been successful. There's no reason to presume that it couldn't be successful here. This was a plan put together by a professional transportation development firm that's based in San Francisco. They do projects all over the United States and all over the world. We also wanted to strengthen our key corridor service, and basically the best way that we could strengthen our key corridor service anywhere else in the system is to just improve frequencies. We have some areas in our system that have really low frequencies. You might be waiting for a bus every hour and a half, and that's frankly not acceptable. This is the state's capital city. It's the political and cultural center of our state, and we just have to have better service than that. We also wanted to match service with the markets. So this is we're getting to some really innovative different products too for transit. These areas in red up here, we wanted to put commuter shuttles in these areas. So that would be just a shuttle circulating along a route just in these different areas. But these are also areas, at least these top three right here, where we already have express routes. So these community shuttles would circulate but share a couple of the stops that are already existing for the express routes, which those express routes come back into downtown Little Rock. So the big thing and the big win for these areas in red to have these community shuttles is that paratransit service, which we also operate, which is a door-to-door on-demand service provided for through the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's based off local fixed route service. Not express route, but local fixed route service. So if you have a community shuttle in these areas, you have a local fixed route. So that would mean that you could have paratransit service in Sherwood, Maumelle, and Jacksonville. And there are a lot of seniors that are moving out to Maumelle. There are a lot of seniors out in Sherwood and Jacksonville who need this service. And so that's the big win for those communities with the community shuttle. And the idea out here with this one in West Little Rock is that we would have this community shuttle, and we also talked about having a West Little Rock Express route as well that would take people from West Little Rock downtown if they wanted, but mainly also to take people downtown out to all those jobs that are out along in West Little Rock, which is an area of huge development for our community. The areas in green are flex service areas. So flex service is good for it's kind of like paratransit. It would work on demand. So within operating hours and within a certain zone, you could place a call, dial a ride, or some kind of maybe more modern technology to do that, and hook up your ride. And then a smaller vehicle, maybe that's more appropriate for that area, would come pick you up and take you, maybe drop you at a mini hub, and then the mini hub would have like a regular bus route and regular bus service on it, and take you back into the heart of the system, and the artery of the system. This is how you be more efficient with your money and your transit. So in these flex zones, they're really great for areas where people need transit service, but maybe they're losing population. East side over here is a great example of that, and it may not always be, because it's also been an eye for development recently over there. You know, there's been the Cromwell building that they're redoing, and Jimmy Moses has a property over there that he's redoing and developing, and Lost 40s over there and all this stuff. But there are areas, though, neighborhoods over there where people have lived there for a long time, but people are moving out, and people aren't necessarily moving back in to take over those homes. And so there's still a need for transit, but do you really need a 35-foot or a 40-foot bus out there? Probably not. So this would be a great product to put out in these places. It's also good for emerging demands. When we're starting to see a pickup and who wants service and who's asking for service, and that's the case down here south of, in like the very south in the Mablevale area, and in southwest Little Rock, in that area. So we already have some southwest routes, as you can see down there, routes 22 and 23, but there's an area just south of that where we're seeing some interest too, so this would address that. We also wanted to modernize the customer experience, and I'm happy to say we did most of this part. A lot of you have seen our new compressed natural gas buses. They're cleaner, the fuel is cheaper, it's right here in Arkansas and available, so it doesn't have to cross state lines to get here. It costs a lot less than diesel, and it burns cleaner, so it's a great product. So we have those. We were fortunate to get a discretionary grant, a TAP grant, and so we have 1,600 stops in our system, and up until recently, we only had about 100 shelters. So we put aside some money, and we're really, really careful with our dollars, and we're going to buy 30, and that was great, and we did that. And then we wrote a grant, and we got 25 more. So in like a couple months' time, we basically increased our shelter holdings by 55%, which is a pretty good increase, I think. So we're working on that. And we also introduced our MetroTrack app. If y'all haven't tried it, it's amazing. Real-time information. We also have real-time information on live maps online. So even if you know somebody who doesn't have a phone, but maybe at their job they have access to a communal computer, they can check the map real fast, see when the bus is going to get there, and if it's 104 degrees, maybe they have a better idea of when they need to walk out the door and actually stand at that stop and wait for the bus. You can also use the bus stop sign texting system. So if you walk outside to any bus stop around here, you'll see texting instructions with a unique 5-digit code for that particular sign. You text it, it'll text you right back and tell you how many minutes the bus is away from you. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, right? Okay, so we're doing some things that are good, right? We're showing that we are capable of more, which was what this tax was all about, this investment in public transit. We are capable of so much more here in Central Arkansas if people would let us. So we went for a quarter-penny sales tax last March. It was March 1st, the ballot, and it was the Pulaski County-wide ballot. And it was the presidential primary. There were 17 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and we were the only non-human being on the list. And we were very, very small font in the bottom right-hand corner. We didn't get it, but we did really, really well, I think, for having not gone for a sales tax in 14 years. I think it was for our agency, a brand new leadership team there. So we're going to go again. We're going to go again. And we will be ready when we do, so look for it. But, so we didn't get it, but we didn't just lay down and die. And I'll be really quick because I'm running out of time, but we took that plan, that Move Central Arkansas plan, and said, okay, well, we don't have this money, we didn't get this investment, so what can we do? It would be a shame to have this just sit in a binder gathering dust because it's a really great plan. So we looked at it and said, okay, we're going to take any kind of low and no cost things from this plan and try to put them in place. And so people ask us, okay, well, without that dedicated funding source, we know we can't make major investments. So how come you're able to make changes now? And that's the answer. They're minor changes. They're very minor in the transit world. Now, if you're a particular person and we change something about your bus route or your stop, you might not think it's minor, and I totally get that. But in the transit world, for transit planning, they were pretty minor changes. And we also had some tools in our box this time around that we didn't used to have. When we rolled out those new CNG buses toward the end of the summer in 2015, at the same time we rolled out automatic passenger counters on every single bus in the system. And what those tell us is how many people are getting on and off at each stop in the system, which we already kind of knew anecdotally before what was going on, but we didn't have hard data. So those are great. We also did a lot of field work, so for months at a time, you may have seen some of the people in our operations department riding around the buses with a clipboard, and they might have said, hey, why are you on the bus today? Oh, you're going to school, okay. And they would take some data like that to put it all together to figure out how people were actually using certain routes and where they were going and what they were doing. And this is kind of a fun map of what that looks like. So this is called a heat map, and I told you we can find out how many people are getting on and off at each stop in the system. So what we did is we took all those numbers and we put it into this great program and it spit out a map. And these areas in red are the hot spots. So downtown at the bus station, that's why that's like huge red circle, because it's a big hot spot. Over here, that's the Midtown Transfer Hub behind the Target and in front of Doctor's Building. And then down here is UALR, out here's the Bowman Walmart, and this is the Shackelford Crossing Walmart. And then of course this is like the McCain Mall area, and then Fort Roots, Pulaski Tech. So you can kind of see where the hot spots are in the system. And it also told us where the not so hot spots in the system were. So we took that data and applied it to make some changes. We also got a lot of public input. I spent a week down at the travel center from 6 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. in the evening and asked people just randomly what they wanted out of their system without giving them anything to respond to. Just a free blank slate. What do you want? And so we got a lot of great ideas. We also just did a ton of work with that. We looked at every single route in the system to look and see what improvements could be made. And we ended up changing 16 of 26 routes, which we've changed routes before in our system and made minor changes, but it was never 16 at once. And it was fun. It was a process. It was a 7-month process. And our staff is kind of small, and they did a tremendous amount of work. And I'm very proud to say that the big takeaway out of this is that we got 40 extra service miles out of nothing. Out of nothing, with no extra dime, not a dime extra money. That is amazing. That's amazing. So it's amazing too, but what technology can do, because a lot of these calculations that we used to do were by hand. So we were talking like down to the fractional level, squeezing out miles wherever we could to get some more play in the system. And we did a lot of other things, but basically I know I'm running over time, and I know that you guys might have some questions, and I'm happy to answer them. But I wanted to get really quickly to the last part of the slide. Sorry, I added a bunch in case somebody asked me about a specific route. But let me get down to the big takeaway here. We're listening all the time. You can, if you have an idea about a route, or you want to bench somewhere, you want to shelter, you have a problem with a stop, you can email us, you can call us. We've got a great website, rrmetro.org. It's full of information. Every bit of this plan is on there. If you go to rrmetro.org/move, and I'll hand out some handouts that have that address on there. That's all about the plan at that link. And you can also sign up for our e-newsletters. I promise I'm the one who sends them. I don't spam you. I think I spend maybe 1 or 2 a month, if even that. And we still take snail mail, but we're also on Facebook and Twitter, so you can reach out to us. Our handle's @rrmetro. And I always have Jared's email address down there. Jared's our executive director that you saw in the video. He's very accessible. He is out, done amazing stuff for us, very much a community outreach guy. He's just done a ton of great stuff with the system. But also, if all of this looks good to you, I have to say that your support is critical. I'm just excited that I can be here today, and one day out of the 365-day year, we can talk about something else other than a highway. Because if you want something else, you got to start talking about it more often. There are other ways to travel. But if your local elected officials and people in the community don't hear from you who live here how important those other options are, it's never going to happen. So you guys do have to support it if you do support it. A great way to do that, there's a Facebook page called the Rock Region Transit Alliance, and I'll say it's been a little sleepy ever since the tax last year, but that doesn't mean we're not doing anything. It just means we're kind of gathering up our resources, and we're waiting, honestly, to see who emerges, who's really passionate about this topic, to see who's going to help us the next time around. And maybe that person's you. So that's how you can find out more about it. And with that, I'll close it up, and you can ask Kathy questions about I-30, and you can ask me any questions you like about public transit.
Becca, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have constituents down in Scott, Arkansas, who asked me about the route going from Scott, Arkansas to Pulaski Tech. I talked with Jared about it about a month ago, and he said you all were working on the routes, working on planning the routes. Do you know the status of those right now? I know that they can catch the bus from downtown Little Rock to Pulaski Tech.
I don't know anything about that particular area, and you said Scott, Arkansas?
They have students down there, and they wanted to know if it was possible they could get a bus ride.
Oh, to get a bus route. Okay, I thought you said an existing bus route. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's on this town. Okay. We were going to do that process that I mentioned, the annual service enhancements process, every year now. So that's something that you can, like, if you've talked to Jared, he's probably got it on the list with our operations team. And what they do is they keep a running log of all kinds of requests like that, and then every year at this time of year, they sit down and look at the past 12 months of requests and say, what can we do? So right now, I can tell you, we don't have the money to add a route at all, and especially one that would go all the way to Scott. But that doesn't mean that that will always be the case. So, you know, right now, it's a funding thing. And that's why the frequency is not very high. And I would tell you that people who live here in the city proper and are going down to like all the 4 hospitals along West Markham would probably cry that there needs to be more frequency of buses on West Markham before we do anything going out on a regional level. You know, we do get requests to go to Benton and Bryant and Conway. Those are probably like the most typical requests that we get. And Kathy mentioned earlier about that study for traffic on I-30. Well, we don't even run one bus except for the bus that's the Maumelle Express over the I-30 bridge, and then it comes off the highway to downtown. So where they're talking about with that study for traffic on I-30, we don't even run a bus there right now. So, you know, you have to fix the core of the transit system in the core urban area before you go out to regions. Because, I'll give you a great example. I grew up in Benton, and my parents still live there, and the first thing they asked me when I got this job is, hey, when are you going to get light rail to Benton? And I was like, simmer down. And I said, here's the deal, Mom and Dad. If you got on the rail tomorrow and it came down to downtown Little Rock, what would you do when you got off the rail? And they looked at me and they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, what would you do? Where would you go? How would you get to, like, let's say the Midtown shopping area at the center? And they're like, I don't know, that's a great question. I'm like, it is, isn't it? Because, you know, right now they probably have to wait for a bus to come to the bus station for like maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And that's not really going to replace people who are used to the convenience and accessibility of a car, right? So you have to have more investment, so you have more frequency in the core of the system before you can go out. And that's what will cause people to change their behavior. Because y'all, I talk to a lot of people, and there are a lot of people who don't want to drive. There are a lot of people who would take us up on the option if we had that kind of frequency. We just have to offer it. So, any other questions?
Yes, we know that the 2020 census will be coming out in 2020, which is 2 years from now. And how much of a census data that tells us about our changing demographics and as to different age groups, different careers, how do you use the census every 10 years? Is it a factor?
I don't think it's a factor right now, only because we do use a lot of demographics and research and planning transit, but we don't have a lot of funds to do something differently. So right now, you're just spinning your wheels to do a bunch of studies about things that you can't really get. I mean, we put all of our money into planning this great study that was done by a really professional team, and it's a great plan for Central Arkansas, customized to our market. The problem is we said, well, in order to work out this plan, it's going to cost $36 million a year. We have almost $18 million per year that we get right now to run the system that we have right now. That sales tax would have generated about $18 million extra to have all the things that were on that list. So it really is a funding issue. It's, we can't really dream that much bigger until we get funding. So if we got the funding and we were able to put this plan in place, I think it would open up a lot more doors for going out to possibly Scott or Conway or Benton or Bryant or other big dreams that we have for transportation for this area. But you got to start somewhere first. So.
Well, one of the days that the mayor has talked about, ride your bike and don't drive, I know that there are lots and lots of people that have no idea how the city has grown and the attractions. Do you have a marketing plan for how to get not ridden on a bus in 20 years? To encourage them to ride just like we do for the tourists with the trolley.
Yes.
And we need a tourism of our own city. Most of us don't know this city.
I think you're absolutely correct. And one of the things that so yes, we have a marketing plan, and also what I love to bring to every group when I talk about it, because inevitably someone will raise their hand and say, have you guys ever thought about getting a route to the airport? And I go, amazingly enough, we have one. And so I bring this and say, you should try it. The next time you're going to go on a flight, which I would say, a lot of people, that's a good way to try it out. Go and give yourself some time and take the bus down to the station and then ride it out to the airport. You don't have to pay to park your car for 5 days and whatnot. Try it out. I mean, here's the schedule. I'll be happy to pass it out to you. So yes, we do have a plan to get more people who have a choice of their transportation, because what we found is a lot of people like to have, they can sit back. We have free Wi-Fi on the buses now. You can really make the most of your commute. You don't have to be screaming and cussing at the person in front of you. You can let somebody else do that, internally in your head, of course, because, our drivers are very professional. But anyway.
Becca, I had to offer a couple of anecdotes at this point that the coalition has collected about spending your time on the bus productively. I was in a meeting the other day, and very attractive, engaging young lawyer who lives in the St. Charles area, as you know, quite west, said that when he can make it, and it's not that easy to connect, he really benefits from coming all the way to his downtown law office because he gets work done. He has his laptop or notebook, and remember, he says lawyers have billable hours. So he's getting actual paid work done while he's riding on the bus. So we've got more and more folks in that category that are potential service clients of the bus. And the other comes from, in fact, our Briarwood neighborhood president, Kurt Myers, who unfortunately was ill and couldn't be with us today. And he was telling us that he has a 19-year-old son. He wants a car. Seems like young males want cars. But he was totally frustrated by the fact that his insurance was so sky high. As a male under 25, he couldn't begin to afford insurance. And so he has simply, as a cost-benefit comparison that his parents taught him to perform, decided he's riding the bus day in and day out because it is so far better a benefit to his own finances and the future of him as a student than straining his efforts and assets to try and get a car and pay that insurance on the car. So we got a lot of folks coming up, teenagers who maybe can't afford the insurance, and that's a marketing pursuit that we should be bringing up in our neighborhood.